Well, hello, Aristo.
Hello, Ron.
It's
Back.
quite a day yesterday for me. As we've been discussing, I'm certainly being challenged. But you had already picked out a title, and I'm basically going to let you run with it. And you can say your own title and go ahead and wherever you want to go, and I'll interject as I need to.
Okay. Well, Ron, this is the first time one of the few times I really have chosen the title beforehand and stuck with it because, as you know, my, inspiration or whatever, gift of gab or curse of gab just changes over the week with all the information coming through. But I think I'll stick with this title, and I don't know how I'm going to develop it. I don't have a script, and you may think, what does this have to do with the title? But we'll see. So it's fuck the NWOs. Not just one New World Order, but all of them. What we need is the new wing, capital N-U-W-I, small n, which it's an acronym for Natural Uncompromised World Integrity. Now, oops, I lost you. Okay. Now, what we want is win. Now, somebody had wrote before in one of your comments that New World Order, whatever the order is suspect, because order basically is something controlled. Order, when it's natural, is observed in chaos. It's dynamic. The world is dynamic. I remembered some of my major transitions in life. Some of the greatest things that ever happened to me, there were two things in common. One of them was they were unpredictable. I couldn't see them coming. And the second was they were messy. In other words, if somebody would have told me about it, I would have been scared shitless and would have tried to do everything I could to prevent them. However, they weren't necessarily traumatic. Sometimes it seems that they were traumatic because they upset my life. And it's easy to go around telling people, oh, you have to accept these changes and this and that, just like it's easy to tell people to be neutral. Or it's easy to tell people to be, well, if something happens, somebody once, one person was arguing, well, if you're on the railroad track, in order to avoid the train, even if I have to cut your legs off to drag you out of the tracks and save you, it's like I was saying, well, if you're going to put me in a body bag, why fucking bother taking me off the tracks? It defeats the purpose. So you're just changing the way of my demise. I need to get off the tracks on my own accord by seeing the train coming and recognizing it for what it is and taking a stance and making a decision. So we talked about the reverse rapture last time, and people were making a lot of jokes about that. They said it sounded really funny. And for the record, that title came because you had made a video way back when about the reverse rapture and described it that way. Now, the thing is, they were right. If you take it literally, the reverse rapture is not the bad guys being taken out. It's instead of taking out the good guys, putting them back in reverse. And that is what's going on. The bad guys being taken out, we're talking about spirit now. We're talking about the offending spirit that possesses the bad guys, the psychopathic impulse, what Paul Levy calls the Wedigo, that kind of thing. That is being transformed, dissolved, and some of it is toxic and cannot be transformed and is being taken off planet. However, it's not a material thing, so we're not going to see little black cubes being taken out of people's bodies. And we won't see little golden angels and cherubs being put into people's heads and their hearts. But there is an exchange going on. However, for this exchange to happen, people need to release their hold on the toxin, which is also their opiate. Religion is the opiate of the people. The matrix is the opiate of the people. Spirituality, dogmatic spirituality, and comforting escapism is an opiate. People use it because they're addicted to their comfort zones. It's a survival mechanism, so it's not wrong. However, it's misapplied. We need to evolve. Human beings, whenever a survival mechanism has restricted them and proven deleterious, they would evolve beyond it and transform it. Other animals end up extinct. The environment changes, your current survival mechanism doesn't work, and so you need to adapt. Right now, psychopathy has reached a certain point of saturation. Anybody who thinks they can get order out of chaos with the crazy weapons of mass destruction and all the lunatics running around is completely bonkers. And of course, these people are. And they're starting to see it because they're bonkers, but crazy like foxes in a way, and they have all these think tanks of yes people who aren't bonkers, but they're still flipping out. Because how long are you going to be a yes man knowing that you're going to be mutated, killed, or whatever? So there are voices of sanity and reason, but they're all, I believe, in a certain context of order. It's the same context. It doesn't heal the problem. Thus, my honest opinion is that the controlling factions may have certain voices within them that have a certain level of inspiration, but the prevalent strategy, tactic, the prevalent plan, so to speak, the prevalent mindset is not aligned with the natural evolution of the planet. It's not aligned with the actual apocalypse going on at this moment that had to do with the ninth wave and with the spirit of revelation beyond religion and all of that. Thus, they will have no control over the dynamic of tribulation. Tribulation comes from a Greek word, tribos, tribi, which means friction. And there's an interesting rune that's called the rune of need. This rune is depicted by a vertical stick and a diagonal line. It's basically rubbing a stick in the snowstorm to generate heat and fire because you're going to freeze to death if you don't. This is friction. This is tribulation. The friction we are undergoing needs to generate the energy in order so we don't freeze to death by artificial stasis. The stasis of an unloving world. The stasis of a world that lacks compassion. The stasis of a world that lacks integrity. So integrity basically means being integral, being whole, accepting your true being. Being honest is being in integrity. Being loving is being in integrity. Participating in the world is being in integrity because you are the world. The kingdom, the divine kingdom is within you, and yet the world is also within you. And you are within the world. It goes both ways. We've talked about that, inner and outer. So maintaining a neutral stance is not only denying the world, it's denying yourself. And so you're alienating from yourself, you're alienating from the world, and somebody told you you can do that, and it somehow works because it feels good. It feels comfortable because you don't have any more problems, so it must be good. And if the world is going to explode, so what? We're eternal. Yeah, but why are we here in the first place? If that's the case, are we that stupid? Oh, we didn't know. Come on, you know, all these prophets and whatever they prophesy, they know the future. In the spirit world, the future is laid out. All the probabilities are laid out. You're not linear 3D time. So when we entered, we knew what we were in for. We didn't make a mistake. We didn't stumble. This idea of making a mistake denies the fact that spiritual gifts for us and spiritual givens for the realm of spirit actually exist and they're real. So if you're so-called spirit, you're coming to the earth and incarnating, you know what you're in for. Okay, you do it knowingly, but when do you actually go through a difficult time and knowingly, when the outcome is worth it? When you know the whole thing is worth it and you know you can take it no matter what. Okay, but that doesn't mean you're open to everything. It means you can take it if you participate and use your divine gift or inheritance, and your divine gift or inheritance is free will. What makes us in the image and likeness of the divine? Two things. Creativity, three things. Creativity, free will, and love. Self-generated love. The animal kingdom, there is love, but it's instinctively generated, and it's also generated through environmental circulation. So if I go and love the animals truly with Christ consciousness, they will reflect it back to me. The environment the same way. If I love plants, that's why humans are so great caretakers for nature. They extend life force and love, and they can make plants bloom better, and they can make animals healthier and other humans better and all of that. But if you leave the animals and the plants alone, they can't generate the same thing. They need checks and balances. They need an ecosystem. And thus, when we talk about order with checks and balances like the animal kingdom, we're talking about a world that is trying to survive independently of love, where love is a luxury or something that we don't think can be generated enough in order for the world to live in the more spontaneous manner of natural, uncompromised integrity. World integrity, collective integrity. It's a whole different thing than, it's the same as individual integrity, but it's a field of presence that is so natural collectively that we automatically align to it. Just like we align to our archetypes, our ideals, the ideal of heroism. The ideal of heroism is everywhere, no matter what culture you're in. The ideal of sibling, camaraderie or ideology or compassion, hospitality. It's all over the world. There are ideals and principles, and we talked about this, that are universal. And yet they can't be applied and they fragment. Why? Because love, universal love, is not present. And universal love cannot exist without individual love blossoming in our own hearts as we part, and that cannot happen without participation. You said it yourself. We have to be in a relationship, personally speaking, in order for love to actually be tested, to actually be touched, to actually be applied in a grounded manner. You can't do it on top of the mountain. You can't even see it. You can't sense it outside of an abstraction. So, and I said the other time in the previous video of the reverse rapture that in order to generate love, we need to uncover it by vibrating who we are on the inside. That means in order to let go of the system, we need to focus on ourselves in the sense of self-acceptance, not neutrality. Participation is the word. When you're participating, you don't worry about neutrality or not neutrality because you're present, okay? You're completely present and you're participating and in connection. Just like your lover looks in your eyes and say, where are you now? You're 1,000 miles away. I don't feel your love. You may have it, whatever. You're 1,000 miles. You're not present because you're not participating. You're not engaging. So yes, we need to engage with the world and in the world, and we need to engage with ourselves. So I can set aside all these concepts of neutrality or not neutrality when I speak of engagement. You're not alive if you're not engaging with yourself, with the world, with everything. And so we know what principles are. We've talked about them. We know what integrity is, and we've talked about that. But integrity cannot exist without acceptance. And acceptance is blocked because of matrix programming. And the only way to remove the matrix programming first is by intention. But when we do that, we start feeling tribulation because we're vomiting it out. It's not enough to just set it aside. A lot of it is so buried in, we have to vomit it out. We have to emote. We have to feel. We have to feel the friction to generate the heat of our own life force, to fire up our engines again. We have to find our passion. And our passion cannot be controlled from the outside. The media is now controlling our passion. And for most people, it's making them high, it's making them low, it's making them happy, people can't get riled up unless they go to a football game in the USA or some stupid thing that the news says. People don't get compassion unless the news has somebody suffering somewhere. If there weren't for I'm saying, no, okay, the Palestinians are dying, but this is happening every day. Why don't you feel it? Why do you have to see some guts and blood on TV in order to finally get upset about the wars going on in the world? Why can't you go within and feel the sense of unease that you're already feeling and then go deeper and deeper and allow it, make that your priority? Because when you have that your priority, and you can take out the scripts, I said, that's half the solution. Take out the scripts by intending and constantly focusing on the feeling. That is not a New Ageist type of thing. You need to vomit out the programming. Okay? Passion vomits it out. But you cannot do that without the presence of love. And how do you do that? It's a catch-22. Well, I don't have love. How do I get love if I don't have it? You intend it. You make it a priority. It becomes a principle. It becomes the primary principle, the top of your hierarchy of principles, which is really the center of your hierarchy of principles, because we're talking about a sphere with an inner center. We're not having a pyramidal hierarchy here. Human beings, please reject those pyramids. They're artificial. Up and down is a relative thing, you know, and whenever you just stick on up and down, heaven and earth are going to be separate. If you focus on the true reality of in and out, subjective, objective, and that too is phenomenal, but you have an inside and you experience an outside. That's your reality. And in that reality, up and down are continuous. They're together. The way to connect heaven and earth within is to reevaluate the world in terms of center and periphery, environment and self, and engage within that. Engage, participate, be involved. Be involved in your own way. Don't let anybody else tell you how to be involved. Oh, you have to join this party, or you have to go through that organization, and you have to march on the streets. You know, involvement is a state of being. It's not a specific set of actions. That's up to your creativity. But if you intend that and open up, then you will notice the emptiness inside of you where you're devoid of love. And that is not a wishy-washy term. You're devoid of self-acceptance because you're not in integrity. You're not feeling yourself. You're not standing up in the world as a sovereign, regardless of what anybody else says or what the rules are or what the laws are. Let me say this. Okay, the cops arrest me. They take me, they beat me, they do this. I comply, I sacrifice to the emperor. I'm in the Roman Empire. They say, you're a Christian, aren't you? Oh, well, yeah, sure. Well, sacrifice to the emperor. Okay. Well, can I do all this and still stay sovereign? Yes, I fucking can. I can still stay sovereign because I have not betrayed anything, because it's a state of being. I have just gone through stupid, meaningless motions that have set a bunch of meaningless zombies at ease. So I can go slip through the cracks of the system and really figure out how the organic, natural evolutionary dynamic of the planet is occurring and how to relate my human condition to it. So going around acting the role of hero is just going to get me in the position of the Christians in the Roman Empire. And what happened? Well, the empire just took all of those deaths and converted them into another religion. You know, so actually all of those deaths fed the Middle Ages and the Holy Wars and everything. All of those people sacrificing themselves in the sake of, I'm not you know, for the sake of appearances, basically. They betrayed Jesus. They betrayed themselves. They don't want to, you know, face it. Oh, they all went to heaven. No, that's what the church says. The heaven of the church is the hell of the true Christ. Okay? So when you go and sacrifice yourself, you're throwing away God's gift of your life. Okay? It's suicide. What they did was commit suicide because they wanted to prove their faith. There's no such thing as proving your faith to God, because you are, God is already in your heart. You know, the word proof does not go in divine vocabulary. There's no need for it. If you are, you are. There's no need to prove it. So if you're going to save but it's different if the empire said kill your family. Then you're sacrificing the principles that Christ was promoting. Love, gentleness, compassion. But fucking, you know, bowing down in front of a statue, who gives a fuck? You know, the same thing. Saying yes to signing your name to a stupid cop who has no clue why you're doing it or not, who gives a fuck? You know, let them think you're nobody. Let them think you're whatever. It's not going to, so they'll get bolder. They're going to get bolder anyways. You know what's keeping them from killing us? You think it's you who sit up with your sign and act the hero? I'm not speaking to you personally. I'm speaking generally. You know, to the audience, to those who believe to get out and blah, blah, blah. No, it's their own computer simulations that they're going to fail. And it's not because of the people, it's because of their own stupidity. It's mirror, mirror on the wall. How can we kill Snow White? And the mirror says, if you try to kill Snow White, you're going to die too. You can't kill the whole population and expect to survive. You don't have the technology, and you're not going to get it because yes men don't create. Your sold-out scientists cannot create. They're under the whip. I know. I've been a researcher in the laboratory coming up with ideas, and I've spent time listening to higher ups come down and tell me what to make. Like I'm a cook, cooking for them. You know, that's not how it works. The biggest inventions have been made by people who were allowed to dream. Those were the biggest inventions. The biggest inventions have been made by accident and synchronicity. They haven't been made by control and dictates and rulership and terrorism, and they haven't been made by buying people out. You know, it doesn't work that way, and those psychopaths are beginning to realize it. They have realized it, but they just didn't want to admit it. So they cannot kill us off, but they're not going to give up their plans. There is a divine providence, and there is going to be a tribulation of sorts because all of us are resisting in some way. So if we look within and open up and find the toxins within us, the only way we can do that is address our victimhood, irrespective of what the world says it is or what it's doing to us, irrespective of our guilt for being selfish in doing so. Because the world is suffering, we're not going out there and doing something directly about it. That's a step. It's not the whole equation. It's one step, and you do not finish a step completely before you begin the other one. You progress to a certain point in the step, and then you see opportunity. You take the opportunity, like you have with the dragon and ambassador and all of that stuff, and you run with it. And it teaches you, it contributes to the step on the inside because it gets you to understand what's going on within. You learn to discern. You make mistakes, which are not really mistakes. These are pathways of awakening. You intend that you're always safe. You intend that you're grounded and feel it. And you also allow yourself to experience the discomfort within the context of your own self-acceptance. And if you don't accept yourself, then you feel that too and give it to God. Because truly, I mean, God is a whatever principle. Just take it out of yourself, you know. Feel it coming up and just opening out and feel yourself uncomfortable, feel yourself angry, feel yourself fearful, and forget the storyline, okay? And it's going to hurt, okay? And it's going to hurt, and you're going to have to remember love and acceptance while it hurts. You're going to have to open up to the divine, and the divine isn't going to do it for you. The divine is going to work from within. And it's going to hurt. But what's going to hurt is God. It's not, the tribulation is because the stick is the world and the divine is the little other stick that's rubbing against it, creating whatever, creating the energy. I'm speaking both physically and metaphysically. So, however, know that no tribulation is happening in a vacuum. It's not about psychopaths destroying the world. We cannot be certain because everything is open-ended. However, our very intent and our very sense of meaning is what sustains us. If something is meaningful, then it is true. That is, if you want to find an equation, something meaningful, truly meaningful, which means meaningful across the board, not in the sense of my truth is different from your truth. I'm talking about a heartfelt, deep sense of meaning. Love is meaningful, okay? That's it. Love is meaningful. Whoever says love is meaningless is living a lie. They're not just dysfunctional, they're unhealthy, unwhole, fragmented. They're very ill at a very, very deep level. If love is meaningless, that means they're not experiencing it. If divinity is meaningless, but divinity is love, see? So it can't be meaningless. So if love is meaningful, divinity is meaningful. Love comes before divinity. Our sense of divinity has to do with a process of creation, of rulership, of all these things. But the essence of divinity is love, is the essence of love. So we personalize love and it becomes divinity, but it also becomes another person, lover. The lover is personalized love. So the lover is also on par with divinity in some way, only eye to eye. So for those who can engage in a real relationship on whatever level, with children, with comrades, with whatever, various degrees of love are apparent. But the actual lover, physical lover, is actually the deepest part. And the reason I'm not pro-polygamy is because we are so wounded that we cannot just go around pretending we can love everybody from the first day. Some people will want to specialize to another person, others will want to spread it around, that's fine. But if you can't love one person and you're running away from that, then that means you're inhibited and you're only lying to yourself if you think you can love many people. And I'm sorry if that hurts some sensibilities. But you're just saying, well, I can only love, so I can only skim the surface. And that's it. There's no problem with that. However, one would need to admit it and not feel that something is wrong with them because of that. And then one can find out where one is in life on a deep level. See, you admit things to yourself. You don't have to go around admitting it to other people and being put on a judgment block, because that's what most people would do. Smart people do not wear their hearts on their sleeves in front of people who are not comfortable with the concept of having a heart. You know?
I guess I'm not smart.
Well, you know, the desire to do that is natural again. But no, none of us is really smart, but we're learning. You can't, you know, we're like children. We're learning these things. And as we learn these things, we find out that it's not unloving to be good to yourself. It's not selfish, you know. Religion has taught of that, society, whatever. But the people who teach that are usually the most self-centered people of them all and the biggest hypocrites. So integrity means getting in tune with yourself. But you cannot separate, you cannot do that if you don't participate in life. Even walking out in nature is participating in life. You cannot pretend you're separate from life. You cannot pretend you're separate from other people. You cannot pretend you're separate from yourself. All of this neutrality mumbo jumbo, in my opinion, is just another form of separation, promoting separation. And it feels good in the same way that numbness feels good, in my opinion, because I have tried it. I've been into that kind of spirituality. And although it gives you a false sense of idealistic superiority, like you've got it, it's wrong because you don't feel alive. And it gnaws at you, and you just keep pushing it out until you finally crash. That's what the tribulation is for. The tribulation, somebody else commented and said, Aristo is never cool. No, I'm not. You know, I'm a Mediterranean person. I come from a warm climate. I don't like the wintertime. You know, I'm not cool because I want to feel hot, warm, alive. And whenever I feel cool, I want to heat things up. That's what we do in our house. You know, the weather is cold outside, you light a fire. You light the heater, you know. And so I feel that tribulation is there to warm us up because we've gotten too cool. We're even idolizing it in our culture, you know. Cool, calm, collected, detached, you know, all of these things. No, we need the opposite. And if we're not going to do it, then providence will, however you name it. And providence is going to shake us up. And shaking up is not going to be pretty as long as we are in denial. But you see, there is a way through it. You can start seeing the patterns. You can start seeing the process. And you can start seeing that as you face your victimhood, like I said, the first step is to face the emotions separate from the storyline. The second step is to be able to understand what these emotions are telling you. Why are they there? Not as a storyline, but as a series of impulses, as a series of intuitions, as a series of promptings, of meaningful dynamics that are inspiring you. That's your own sovereignty waking up, people, when that happens. You know, your natural sovereignty, your true power, the power that nobody can control. Because if you awaken that power, they can't come for you. They won't even see you. You'll be slipping between the cracks. Now, listen to this. If enough people slip between the cracks get wider. And soon the whole environment is dominated by cracks, and then the rest of it's gone. It crumbles. And that's what's going to happen. Because these people cannot observe the cracks. They have no meaning in their hearts. They're trying to compensate. If you compensate for disaster, but still have the same end game of ultimate control and separation between commoner and elite, or us and them, or the world is my oyster and my playground and fuck everybody, you know, but I'll do it compassionately and because I'm worthy and whatever other excuse you make, well, you know, you really have no discernment, and the divine is not going to speak to you. It will only speak to you if you understand the deeper picture. And so you will be, and if you are in touch with your victimhood without blame or guilt, if you can somehow set aside blame and guilt temporarily, just to realize how shitty you feel, but do it in the presence as if someone is loving you. If you've had a lover that you know loves you and you felt it, remember that. Many people haven't. But then something else. If you're religious, then you can feel divine love. Feel that presence. If you can't feel it, then intend it or know that it's there. Even if you can't feel it, because sometimes we're so traumatized that we can't receive. We're blocked. So what happens? Well, the divine, the love comes in and sits outside of our door and waits. I don't know if the Bible has something like that. Jesus waiting outside the door, you know.
Revelation 3:20, behold, I stand at the door and knock.
Exactly. And so the truth of that, the mystical truth, is that the divine essence will come outside the door of your heart, the door of your energy body, the door of your felt sense, of your soul, of your being, and patiently wait. And if you turn toward it, the door isn't going to open because God is closing it. The door isn't going to open because you farted up so much that you got to pull the nails out and get the boards out, you know, because instead of keeping the enemy out, you've locked yourself in. And you've got to open that up. You got to say, excuse me, I know. And it's going to take time. And in the meantime, you're going to feel a distant presence of divinity and love. Some sense that may be subtle, if you feel that. And you're going to feel anguished because of the, you know, your nails are going to be bloody, pulling those things out and the board out and everything. So it's going to be very difficult. But when you do that, you face your victimization. And you will feel healing bit by bit. And you will accumulate it if you acknowledge it. You can do this and participate in the world because we're already in the world. We go to the store, we buy things, whatever. We talk to other people. We're on the internet. That's participation if we're not asleep. If we're doing the inner so-called process awake, then we cannot be asleep to the world outside. We will feel the tension of, I'm not doing anything, but nothing is happening. No, you're giving yourself space to stand up so you can do something. Be patient. If you're determined, but I've been determined for so long. No, if we really look at ourselves, most of us have been running in circles. Get something done, do something, the house is on fire, the sky is falling, you know, whatever, this, that, the other. We have never really consistently given, let's speak religiously, God, Jesus, the avatar, the Christ consciousness, the benefit of the doubt consistently, who is outside of our door, smoking a cigarette, waiting for us to get the things, the locks unlocked. Pick our own locks, and it happens. It will happen with gradual acceptance. And where does this lead? Well, it leads to the second aspect of healing, which has to do with the reverse rapture. It has to do with the fact that once you face how shitty you feel because you've been a victim and the world has been a victim, then you're going to take responsibility for the perpetrator. Okay, this is where the real transformation happens. This is where the visible outside transformation is going to happen. You cannot face your fear on the outside and expect anything to be done. You cannot run around with a banner or a club or a gun and run in the face of what scares the shit out of you and think anything's going to happen because your fear is going to beat you. Because your fear is on the outside. Because those spiritual people are right when they say that. The problem is they don't apply their own rules. The spiritual people that say if you fight it, you create it, you know. Yes, it's true on the outside, but why don't you guys engage on the inside? You're not engaging. You're lying. Otherwise, you wouldn't be talking about neutrality and detachment. So my thing is, before you fight it on the outside, don't say, well, we have to. It's not avoidance. It's priority. Look on the inside, and until you face the equivalent fear that you would be facing on the outside. What was the fear you faced when the cop came in your door and wrestled you to the ground and almost broke your arm? So remember that fear. Know that until you actually bring that up on the inside in the peace of your natural environment and without pressure in the face of love and consistently move it until you feel the door opening and Christ coming into your heart, if you want to talk in Christian terms, the outside fear will be empowered. But when you do that and Christ truly comes into your heart, then you will be able, Christ generally speaking, then you will be able to face the perpetrator within you, because you will know as a divine revelation that it's all your fault. Not in it blaming, it's your responsibility and it's your cause and you've been a part of it, and at some point you've been empowering the psychopath by denying your own shadow. Not in theory, but in practice. If you experience that before you heal your victim, you're going to go crazy because there's going to be an inner conflict between your victim and your perpetrator, and you will either become a psychopath or you will be tormented by an outside psychopath. So it's a process. Once we move toward a process of healing the victim, when we can embrace the perpetrator and love the fact that that's when we love it. But we can't love the guy molesting children out there. We don't need to, and we shouldn't, because that's a manifest event going on in real time by another body that's making its own choices. We're sticking and doing our own participation in it. That's what we're loving. And thus, because our lack of acceptance of our participation in the causality of psychopathy and suffering in the world is what's empowering the external manifestations of psychopathy in the world. So once we move to heal that, they will have nothing. And this is already happening, because now the tribulation is not going to be 99% of the planet. Remove the population. It's probably decreased. I've heard that around. There are other plans. There are negotiations. How do we do this? How do we do that? There's delays. What we do see is a constant terror threat thing, so we don't get on the ball. They're even trying to, there's this thing on the UK where they're, censoring metaphysical YouTube things. And that's because, of course, metaphysical things are dangerous to them, but they also want to know how much of an uproar there's going to be, because they know there's metaphysical activity in the world. They know there are prayers, they know there are intentions. These are helping. They want to see, okay, are people actually going to get pissed off about this? And if they do, that means it's a problem. And then they'll try to find out how to deal with it. Because, they've created so much of a let's do away with the religion crap. On the one hand, the old religions are actually what's keeping us from the Luciferian Illuminati thing. A lot of people who are resisting are conservative fundamentalists. On the other hand, the people who are actually forgetting the fundamentalism are turning into spiritual independence. They're not becoming Illuminati lapdogs. They're going for alternative spirituality. So these people are already in the esoteric dynamic. They're not in control. They haven't brainwashed us completely. Even the people who, and there are enough people on the planet, even in misguided alternative spiritualities, that have enough of a sense, and there are enough fundamentalists that are actually fundamentalists because they don't want to be pulled into the 666 thing, that they're holding the fort until true sovereignty starts evolving in human beings, sovereignty based on love and integrity. This is the uncompromised, natural uncompromised world integrity dynamic that's occurring irrespective of all the other things. It's the true victory, the win, W-I-N. And essentially, once we start dealing with the perpetrator, which we haven't, we've talked about it a little bit theoretically, but nobody's really been, and you can't, because we're still dealing with the victim. So those of you who say, where are the ETs? Well, they need for the perpetrator to be accepted, so the toxin affecting the perpetrator is released by the people accepting. It's not going to be taken out of the psychopaths. They're all hard shells, Spirit cannot reach in there and pull anything out. They're all redoubts. They're fortresses. They build fortresses around themselves. They build cities like fortresses. They make societies like fortresses because they are fortresses to spirit and everything. It's us who need to own up to the perpetrator after we own up to the victim completely through our discomfort and letting the true divine love, openness, all of this in. And it's already in. We're just letting it out, actually. We're opening up the trap door from the basement. That's where Jesus really is. He's knocking on the floorboards. So when we open that, then we can move to the perpetrator, and then you will see a reverse rapture, because God will reach in you, take out the toxin, and put in the new Pentecost. There is going to be a new Pentecost. But you got to clean out the mud from the cup before the good water comes in. And this is what we are freaking out about, because we're used to the nice mud. We got a mud pack on our face and we think it's keeping us nice and youthful. We got comfortable. We're like a homeless person who doesn't want to take a bath. So we're comfortable in it, and we need to engage in our discomfort in a creative fashion, not as victims, because those who will not engage, what's the world going to do with them? It's going to shake them loose. It's going to shake their lives. There are so many people who are dying now who have all their lives have deep down, without admitting it to themselves, felt that their lives were meaningless. The 9-to-5 jobs, blah, 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 all of this, marriages, you know, they said, oh, it's fine. To themselves, they said it's fine. They'll argue to death that it's fine and it's great, and that's the way it is. But somewhere deep down, they lived in quiet desperation and meaninglessness. And thus, they become victims of the vaccine, of the terror plot, of everything, of the cops, because all their actions are based on a kernel of emptiness, because they don't accept themselves. Because if they did, they would find meaning, even through all the discomfort and the loneliness and everything. Open your trap door to the basement you're afraid of, and you will find Jesus crawling out of the floorboards. That was my message for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aristo. Namaste.
Namaste.